This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत, झूमेगा भारत.
Welcome to Bharat Media Studio. We have our special guests, Chirs and Betsy. Hello, how are you? They are running for the judge this November for Hamilton County. How are you doing?
Hello. Thank you for having us.
I'm very well, thank you. How are you?
Good. So please tell us about your background and what makes you a good judge.
Thank you very much. My name's Chirs McDowell, and I'm running for judge in Hamilton County, Common Pleas. And I've been an attorney since 1994. When I first began practicing law, it was in actually the U.S. Army. I was an attorney with what's called the Judge Advocate General's Corps, and I was on active duty, and I was in Korea. And I served in Korea for almost a year, a little over a year actually, and I was a prosecutor there. And then I went to Germany after that, and I was a prosecutor in Germany for all of southern Germany and northern Africa. And then I was a defense attorney. I went to the other side. And so I've seen both sides of criminal law, both prosecuting and the defense side. I'm currently a prosecutor for the village of Newtown. And obviously I've been in Cincinnati since 2000. And so I've practiced criminal law. I also do civil law. So, that's what a judge does at this level. It's a trial court. And so a judge is hearing cases that are being argued to a jury, both criminal cases and civil cases. And so I have broad experience at the highest level in both criminal law and civil law. I've represented people on death row. I've actually gotten 2 people off death row. And I've represented, in civil cases, multi-million-dollar cases. So in both the plaintiff and the defense side. So I feel that this experience in the law gives me a real edge to be a very good judge.
Wow, that's very interesting. How about you, Betsy? Please.
Yes, I guess it's my turn. So I'm Betsy Sundermann, and I'm running for domestic relations judge, which a lot of people call that divorce court. They do some other things in that court, but that's what it's known for. So a little bit about my background. I started off as a social worker for the public defender's office, representing abused and neglected kids in juvenile court. And I liked being in court so much that I went to law school. And then I was a Hamilton County prosecutor for 13 years. And I did all different types of cases. I did criminal, civil, appeals, every different kind of thing you can think of. Then I went to Hamilton County probate court, which is where we do adoptions and guardianships and wills and estates. And I was a magistrate there for 4 years. So a magistrate is appointed by a judge to hear cases. So I would wear a black robe and hear cases, but I'm appointed by the judge. So after that, I was appointed to Cincinnati City Council for 2 years. There were a lot of shenanigans going on at City Hall, a lot of people getting charged with felonies. So a few of us filled in those spots for a couple of years. Now I am back in probate court as a magistrate doing those cases, and I'm running for judge. So really the real reason I'm running is because I have 2 little girls and I want them to stay in Cincinnati. I told them they're allowed to move away from Cincinnati if they want to, but I don't want them to move away just because of crime or lack of jobs, or it's not business friendly, that kind of thing. So I want to use my skill set and my 14 years I've done family law in probate and juvenile court, just to help the county be a better place. So hopefully my daughters will stick around.
Wow. Yeah. So can you please explain the different types of states judges that will be on the ballot in November?
Sure. Well, I'll start with the sort of the top of the ticket. Of course, federal judges are not elected, right? You don't elect United States Supreme Court judges. But in Ohio, the people directly elect their judges. In some states, the governor appoints judges, but in Ohio, we elect our judges. And so at the top of our ticket this year, when people go to vote, is going to be the Ohio Supreme Court. And there are 3 openings, races at the Ohio Supreme Court. The Republican candidates are Pat Fisher, who's from here in Cincinnati, and Patrick DeWine, who's also from here in Cincinnati, and Justice Sharon Kennedy is running for Chief Justice. So that's at the very top of the sort of judicial scale. That's the highest court in Ohio, is the Ohio Supreme Court. And it's a very, very important judicial office, because all cases can be appealed up to that. And when they make a law, then it is the law for the entire state of Ohio, that all the judges below them have to follow those rulings. So that's at the very top. And Betsy, I'll go down one more, and then you can explain some of the others.
All right, sounds good.
Yep. Below the Ohio Supreme Court is the First District Court of Appeals. And this year, there is going to be a race in that court. And the person running is, for the Republicans, is Bob Winkler. He's currently on that court as a judge. And the First District Court of Appeals hears cases that come out of the trial courts, the lower courts in Hamilton County. If those are appealed, they first go to the First District Court of Appeals. And then from there, if the case is appealed higher, it goes to the Ohio Supreme Court, as I just mentioned. Unlike the Ohio Supreme Court, which could make law for the entire state, the First District Court of Appeals only covers Hamilton County. So they're only hearing cases that come out of Hamilton County. Claremont County, Butler County, those go to a different middle court of appeals. So the 2 court of appeals are the District Court of Appeals in Ohio, and then the Ohio Supreme Court. And those are always very important cases, because they basically set the rules for all the trial courts that are down below. And trial courts, as I'm sure Betsy will explain, those are the courts that most of the time what you see on TV. Those are the courts that have juries and where people are arguing and witnesses are on the stand. But the appellate courts, they just hear arguments for maybe somebody says, well, my case was incorrectly decided below because of some mistake. And so that's the appellate courts is mostly lawyers arguing, not juries and so forth. So Betsy, you can pick it up from there.
Yeah. And I know this stuff is kind of dry. I understand people might be zoning out now. A lot of lawyers speak here, but judges are really important. If you've ever had a family member who's been through the court system, if you ever get charged with a crime and you're innocent of the crime, you're going to really care about who your judge is and who the other people in the courtroom are. So some of the other courts, so I told you I'm running for domestic relations. That's divorce court. Mm-hmm. Also running for domestic relations is Judge John Seavey. And he's already been in that court for, I think 12 years. So he knows what he's doing. We need both of us to win so we can kind of help each other. That would be nice. But he's a well-established judge. And then we have juvenile court, which is for people under 18, of course, who get charged with crimes. Mm-hmm. So juvenile court was really started for what's called status offenses, which is, underage smoking or underage drinking or skipping school, those kind of not so terrible crimes. But juvenile court over the years has become a place where we have murder cases, rape cases, robberies. So things have really changed as far as the crimes that juveniles are committing. So sometimes the cases have to be moved from juvenile court to adult court, which some people find that upsetting. But if there's a case right now where a juvenile murdered 4 people, and that case should probably go to the adult court, because if it stays in the juvenile court, that kid can only be locked up till he's 18. So right now, running for juvenile court, we have Stacy DeGraffenreid, and she happens to be the chief of the juvenile division for the prosecutor's office. I used to work with her when I was a prosecutor. She's a really smart lawyer, very level-headed. She would be great. She knows when cases need to be bound over to the adult court. She's the prosecutor on that case with the 4 murders. So I don't know if other judges believe that kids should go to adult court. And I know that's hard to wrap your head around, but it is an important thing. So then we have the general division of common pleas. And that's basically anytime you see a story on the news about a case, that's pretty much going to come out of the general division of common pleas. That's felony cases, which are, murders, rapes, drug dealers, robberies, burglaries, all the kind of big crimes, and the high level civil cases. So a civil case is when it's not the state of Ohio versus you, like a criminal charge, it's one entity versus another entity. So maybe 2 people sue each other, or a business sues somebody, or somebody sues a business, and it's usually about money. So if it's a really high level of money, then it goes in the general division of common pleas court. So we need people there who can handle a lot of different types of cases, which is why it's really good that Chris has a lot of background in criminal and civil. So right now we have running for that court, Pat Dinkelhocker. He was already a judge in that court for 29 years. He's really, really good. He's very tough on crime. He knows how to do civil cases. He's wonderful. We lost him in 2020 as a judge. We lost 12 of our really good judges in 2020. That was a very politically polarized year, and a lot of very liberal voters came out to vote, and we lost a lot of our kind of common sense judges. So he's running again to get his seat back, along with Charles Kubicki. We lost him also in 2020. So he's running to get his seat back, and we really want him there also for the same reasons. He's a tough on crime judge. We also have Judge Megan Shanahan, who is currently on that court. She used to be a prosecutor with me. She is a great person and an excellent judge. So we want to keep her there. I think she's run 6 or 7 different times and won. She's a very hard worker and very tough on crime. So that's what we need. Did I leave anybody out? I think that's everybody. And then Chris, who's being interviewed here, he's also running for that court, of course. Did I leave any of them out?
No, you got them all.
Yeah, so I think that's everything.
Yeah, and we also want to know, what impact can judges have on crime safety?
Yeah, a judge is one of the first people who really, police arrest the criminal, and then if it's a serious offense, they are put in jail, and then they have to immediately come in front of a judge to determine whether they should remain locked up or whether they should be let go. And what's going on right now in our society is that a lot of liberals think that even violent offenders should be let out of jail and not kept on what's called a cash bond. And so what happens is these people are getting arrested. The police, are putting themselves at jeopardy to apprehend somebody who's committed some violent offense. Maybe they've robbed a grocery store or something like that, and the police have tracked them down. And then some of these liberal judges are just letting them go right back onto the street, sometimes the same day. And then often they reoffend. They hurt other people. And so the first place where a judge can make a difference is a judge has to very quickly determine whether or not such a person should stay in jail or not. And, judges that are tough on crime look at those people and say, we want to protect society from you, and maybe even protect you. And so those judges are going to set a high bond to keep those people in jail so that they're not back out on the street. The next area in which judges can impact, the public safety is in their sentences for violent offenses. So, In Ohio, the judge will determine what is an appropriate sentence using certain guidelines. And so a judge often has the authority to get somebody probation and put them, even though they've admitted to committing a serious offense, maybe a serious drug offense. The liberals like to think that people are being locked up because of minor marijuana charges, and that's just not the case. The people who are being locked up for drug offenses are heroin dealers, people who are putting poison into our community and killing our young people. And so a judge, whether that person has pled guilty or been found guilty by a jury, a judge determines what's going to happen to that person. And so on the one hand, you have liberal judges who just put those people right back onto the streets. And it should come as no surprise that they continue to commit crimes. And then there are other judges who can look at people and say, well, maybe what you need is treatment. You have an alcohol or a drug problem. We're going to get you some treatment before we let you back out on the street. And then there are a certain percentage of people who commit offenses who just need to be locked up to protect society. They need to be separated from the rest of us so that they don't hurt, women, children, other people again. So Betsy, I'll let you take it from there.
Yeah, I can add a little to that. I mean, a judge has a lot of discretion on what happens on a case. A judge can require that a defendant be on house arrest if they get out of jail, which is the little box on someone's ankle and they're stuck next to their phone at home. Another thing is called Juris Monitor, where a judge can order that a crime victim be able to get a Juris Monitor, which means if I'm a crime victim, the probation department would come to my house and they would set up an alarm connected to my phone at my house. And if someone came within a certain number of feet of my house, an alarm would go off and the sheriff's deputies would come. And that can be hooked up to your cell phone. So if you're out and about and the person who raped you or burglarized you is within a certain number of feet of you, it immediately alerts police and they can come and help you. I mean, that's not enough, though. When someone's really violent, they're not going to care about a box on their ankle or about, an alarm going off because they can get to you before the sheriff's deputies can get to you. But the problem we see with a lot of our new judges we got in 2020 is that they only consider what's in the best interest of the bad guy, the defendant. It's all about what will help this defendant. And while we do that more in juvenile court than we do in adult court, which it's more about rehabilitation in juvenile court. But I mean, you have to consider the safety of the public, the protection of the witnesses, the protection of the crime victim. What if someone across the street from you murdered someone in your family and then they came right back to their house the next day after they got charged and they were right across the street from you? You probably wouldn't feel very safe, even if they had a little box on their ankle, because they could just come right over. They can harass you. They can kill you. So sometimes it is appropriate to have people locked up. And then even on civil cases, some of the new judges have been making decisions that I don't think are in the best interest of the community. For example, sometimes people are owed money. It's called restitution. They're owed money for certain things that have happened to them. And I've seen some of the new judges, after a little bit of the money has been paid back, then they terminate it. And they say, well, you paid a little bit, we can end the case. And that's not okay, because crime victims they should be able to get reimbursed for things. So this kind of leads us into issue one. I guess we could talk about issue one.
What is the issue one on ballot this year, and why this is important for people to know about it?
Well, remember before I was talking about the Ohio Supreme Court that makes laws for the entire state. Mm-hmm. It had been pretty much since Ohio became a state that judges, when they considered bond, remember I was telling you that the person has to come in front of a judge to determine bond, that a judge would determine the safety of the community as part of the bond. So if somebody is a violent criminal, has committed an offense with a gun, has threatened to harm somebody, threatened to harm witnesses, well, the judge could say, you know, you need a higher bond to protect society from you, to protect other people from you. Public safety was always a consideration in Ohio for over 160 years. And then within the last year, the Ohio Supreme Court took that ability away from judges. They said judges can no longer consider public safety when they set a bond. And this was a new thing. And now, because remember, the Ohio Supreme Court is over all the courts in the state, this has become a statewide law. And so as it stands right now, if a judge has a violent offender in front of them, the primary thing that they have to consider is that person's ability to pay for a bond. And as you can imagine, many people who commit crimes have no money or have very little money, or they're drug dealers who are not reporting that money on their taxes, right? And so they come in front of the judge and they say, well, you know, I make very little money. And so the judge has to set a bond for a violent offender of either no money at all. It's called an own recognizance bond, in which case they just walk right out of the jail, or a very low bond of maybe $1,000, $5,000 at 10%. But it's not taking into consideration the public safety aspect of that criminal. And so as a result of this decision that the Ohio Supreme Court made, all of these, or there's a lot of violent offenders now who are out free, who are out walking the streets. So if somebody were to harm his wife or his girlfriend, maybe beat her up, almost kill her, tell her that, you know, next time I'm going to kill you. And she goes into court and she tells the judge, you know, Your Honor, he said he was going to kill me. I believe that he is going to kill me if he gets out of jail. And now the judge says, well, you know what we're going to do? He doesn't make any money, so we're going to give him an OR bond, but we're going to put what Betsy was talking about. We're going to put that thing on his ankle, and that's supposed to protect the person. And the woman says, that's not going to work. He's going to kill me. And so this is the dangerous situation that we now face in Ohio, because liberal judges have taken away the ability of trial judges to take into consideration public safety when determining a bond. So I'll let Betsy finish this out and explain what issue 1 will actually do.
Yeah, and just to explain in very basic terms about bond, because I know people hear these terms all the time, but when someone's arrested on a crime, they're facing jail time for that crime, within 24 hours of being arrested, they have a court hearing in front of a judge, and the judge sets a bond. And some people call it bail. You'll hear the term bail reform a lot in the national media. Bond is what we call it in Hamilton County. Some people call it bail. But that's the amount of money that you have to pay to get out of jail before you're tried for your crime, or before you have another hearing on your crime. So very wealthy people are able to bond themselves out to pay the bail. So of course, this has started a national trend toward, you know, this is not fair to low income people. And I understand there has to be a balance there, but it's gone way too far to the other direction now, where it's all about catering to the best interest of the defendant, and we're not using our brains anymore and setting higher bonds or bails on crimes that I believe are worth it. And I mean, I could list for you many cases where a murderer has been let out on a very low bond. I mean, sometimes $2,000 at 10%, which is $200 to get out on a murder charge. And then that person will go out and murder one of the witnesses to the case. I mean, it's been happening for the last year or two, since 2020. And usually with new judges, once they have a case where this happens, usually they realize immediately, oh my God, I made a huge mistake. I'm not going to do that again. But we're seeing these judges do this over and over. And then when they're asked, you know, why did you do that? They'll say, well, how would I know that would happen? That's, you know, I just have to do what's right for the bond for the defendant. And we can't predict what's going to happen in the future. But I would argue that it's very predictable that that's going to happen, and it's not a good idea. So as Chris said, the Ohio Supreme Court, I think, made a not great decision, and they decided that judges can no longer consider public safety or victim safety, witness safety. It's absolutely absurd. So issue 1 fixes that and brings it back to how it used to be, where, of course, you can consider public safety when setting a bond. I think that's what everyone in Ohio would want. I mean, they don't want very dangerous people out on the street. They want people locked up pending their trial.
Absolutely. Yeah. So how can our listener find out more about judicial races and who are running?
Well, we have what's called the GopJudgescom. And so you can go to on the internet and you can type in GopJudges.com, and it will pull up all of the races that we've been talking about and all of the people who are running on the Republican side, the conservative side, the law and order side, the side that's going to keep people safe. All those judges and all those people will be listed. Betsy's on there, I'm on there, and it explains all those races. So that's Hamilton County, it's GopJudges.com. And that's a really good place to start, because all of those people, Betsy and I, have been endorsed by the Republican Party. We've been vetted, and we have the blessing and the endorsement of the Republican Party. And I believe that's the law and order party. That's the party that's going to keep people safe.
Yeah, and it's not a mistake that we all kind of are in sync with each other. I mean, we built this slate on purpose as people who want to bring the courthouse back to normalcy. We don't like what's happened over the last couple of years. So we are a good team, and we promise that to consider the safety of the public. I mean, it's just so absurd. I can't believe this is even on the ballot, issue 1, but we won't make stupid decisions on cases, and we will protect the public.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. I really appreciate your time. Thank you. It was wonderful talking to you. I wish you all the best for this. Yep.
Thank you for having us. This is a wonderful opportunity for us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
This is Bharat FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.
ये है भारत FM.
बजेगा भारत झूमेगा भारत.